Right now, millions of people are opening TikTok and doing something strange.
A legal battle against TikTok.
You're being catchy.
They are lining up an old photo of their mother or father next to a photo of themselves. Same age, same kind of moment. A wedding, a first apartment, a tired face holding a baby. The caption always asks some version of the same question. Am I doing better than they did? Or worse? But the real answer is far stranger than a caption can hold. You are not just scrolling a trend.
Scrolling.
You are running a piece of software that is millions of years old. Your brain did not evolve to understand TikTok. It evolved to survive small groups on unforgiving land. And one of its oldest habits is measuring your position against the people closest to you. Not strangers, not celebrities. Family. Why does it matter so much where you stand next to your own parents? Think about how the trend actually plays out. Someone digs up a photo from a shoebox or an old hard drive. They line it up next to a selfie. They add text across the top. Same age, different world. The video gets millions of views within hours. People do not just watch it. They pause it. They screenshot it. They go find their own old photos and make their own version. That kind of instant, obsessive replication rarely happens by accident.
Over 1 million views on YouTube.
It happens when a piece of content hits something already wired deep inside a viewer. Something older than the platform. Older than photography itself.
Boudoir photography.
Start with a simple fact about your body. It is constantly asking a question you never hear out loud. Am I on track? Not on track for happiness, on track for survival, and eventually, reproduction.
Laptop! Oh.
Evolutionary biologists call this life history strategy. It is the internal timeline your body keeps for growing up, pairing up, and having offspring, calibrated against the environment around you. And the fastest, cheapest way to check that timeline is to look at someone who shares your genes and started the race one generation ahead of you. Your parents are not just people you love or resent. They are your closest available benchmark. Researcher Daniel Nettle has studied how life history strategies shift depending on the environment a person grows up in, showing that people unconsciously adjust their pace of life, career moves, and family timing based on the conditions they observe early on. And what is the most vivid environmental data point available to a child? A parent's life, played out in full view, year after year. Consider what a child actually absorbs before they can even speak. They watch which adult eats last at the table. They watch who flinches at a phone bill. They watch how long it takes for tension in a room to ease after a hard month. None of this is explained out loud. It does not need to be. A young brain is built to extract patterns from exactly this kind of ambient evidence. This is where social comparison enters the picture. In 1954, psychologist Leon Festinger proposed something that still holds up. Humans evaluate themselves primarily through comparison with others, especially when no objective standard exists. There is no ruler for a good life, no universal score for a good year. So your mind borrows one. It borrows the nearest, most emotionally loaded example it has. For most of you, that example is a parent. Evidence about whether you are safe. Ancient human groups depended heavily on generational knowledge to survive. A child who could accurately judge whether they were keeping pace with the adults around them had a real advantage. Falling behind the group's pace of survival skills, food gathering, or social status was not just embarrassing, it could be dangerous. So the brain built a fast emotional alarm system for exactly this kind of tracking. That alarm did not disappear when the environment changed. It just started firing at rent prices and job titles instead of hunting success. Picture two teenagers in an early human band, decades before agriculture existed. One can track exactly how far behind or ahead they are compared to the adults who raised them in skill, in strength, in social standing. The other has no such awareness at all. In hard seasons, the first teenager adjusts, works harder, forms new alliances, changes course. The second simply drifts, blind to their own position, until the gap becomes a crisis. Only one of those strategies reliably produces descendants who inherit the same alertness. That is the quiet engine behind the alarm system you still carry. But here is the twist. twist almost nobody expects. Your comparison to your parents is not actually about your parents. It is about time itself and how your mind tries to control something it cannot control.
Psychologist Hazel Marcus, working with Paul and Norius, introduced the idea of possible selves, the different versions of who you might become that live in your imagination alongside who you currently are. When you compare your current life to your parents' life at your age, you are not measuring against a fixed target. You are measuring against a possible self, one built entirely out of borrowed memory. That version of you is partly real because it is based on an actual person, but it is also partly fiction because your parents' era, economy, and options were not the same as yours. You are racing a ghost running on a different track. This is why the comparison can feel so oddly personal and so easy to lose. If your parent bought a home at 26 and you are renting at 32, it does not just feel like a financial gap, it feels like a verdict on your character. Your ancient brain, still running its old survival software, interprets economic timing as evidence of your worth. It rarely accounts for interest rates. It rarely accounts for wage stagnation. It just compares two numbers on a life history timeline and quietly hands down a judgment.
Notice, too, how the trend rarely stays private. People do not simply make this comparison in their own heads and move on. They post it publicly with a caption that invites strangers to weigh in. Why would something so personal need an audience? Because the ancient alarm system was never built to run in isolation. It evolved inside groups, where checking your position meant checking it against many observers at once, not just a private inner voice. Posting the comparison online is not a break from that old pattern. It is a near-perfect reconstruction of it, just at a scale your ancestors never could have imagined. There is a second, colder layer underneath this trend, and it involves conflict as much as connection. Evolutionary biologist Robert Trivers described what he called parent-offspring conflict. The idea that even loving parents and their children have partially misaligned interests, shaped by the different pressures each generation faces. A parent's choices were optimized for their world. Their caution, their risk-taking, their timing, all of it was tuned to conditions that may no longer exist. When you measure your progress against theirs, you are not comparing two versions of the same test. You are comparing two different tests, taken decades apart, and quietly grading yourself as if the questions were identical. So why does the trend spread so fast, and why does it feel almost addictive to make these comparisons public? Because shared generational anxiety is one of the strongest bonding signals humans have. Psychologist Jean Twenge has spent years studying how each generation reports different pressures around money, milestones, and timing, and how those differences shape identity at a group level, not just an individual one. When you post yourself next to your parent at the same age, you are not only asking a question about your own life, you are inviting an entire generation to answer alongside you. Every comment section becomes a quiet tally. Ahead, behind, unsure. That tally feels less lonely than the private version of the same fear. And loneliness is exactly what this behavior evolved to prevent. A person who could see their trajectory clearly and confirm it against others was less likely to make catastrophic decisions alone. Confirmation from the group used to mean survival. Now it means a comment that says, "Wait, me too, same, I thought it was just me."
Here is the part that should genuinely surprise you. The comparison itself is not the ancient part. The ancient part is your need for a benchmark at all. Strip away the phone, the filter, the caption. What remains is a creature standing next to the people who raised it, trying to answer one question that has never gone out of style. Am I going to be okay? Your ancestors asked that question by watching elders return from a hunt, by watching who survived a hard winter, by watching whose children thrived. You ask it by aligning two photographs and reading the replies. Different tools, same nervous system underneath, still doing the only job it has ever known how to do, which is trying to keep you safe by comparing you to the people who came before you. So tonight, when you see another split-screen photo scroll past, notice what actually happens in your chest. Not the numbers, not the ages, the feeling underneath them. The same one a small human felt standing next to a parent thousands of generations ago, quietly checking the horizon and asking whether it was keeping pace. You were never really comparing your rent to theirs. You were asking the oldest question your species has ever known how to ask. And for one honest second before you kept scrolling, you were finally listening to the answer.